G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here with my ongoing coverage of the chronological events 79 years afterwards for May the 11th, 1942, during the Battle of the Coral Sea, as recounted in Jack Riddell's book Catalina Squadrons, First and Furthest, which, if you're chasing it electronically, you should be able to acquire digitally from the National Library of Australia with ISBN 3BN 0646 091468. The game plan for this video is to read from the Unit History Operationals Detail book for Event P chart number 1, and here we have yet another one of these infamous typos. On either the 11th or the 13th or the 113th of May 1942. With the context that the previous day was the 10th, I'm going to say that it's the 11th and nobody knows where the 3 came from. Chart number 1 shows us where Event P took place. Cairns, A2417. A search of the areas, that big slab of latitude and longitudes, 16 degrees 12 seconds south, 154 degrees east, 16 degrees 16 minutes south, 155 degrees 5 minutes east, 15 degrees 50 minutes south, 155 degrees 5 minutes east, 150.45 south, 155.40 east, which I make to be there. Going to need that pin. 15 degrees 32 minutes south, 154 degrees 40 minutes east, 1533 south, 155.03 east, 15 degrees 32 minutes south, 155 degrees east, and finally 15 degrees 28 minutes south, 154 degrees east. And the only reason I can think of to give all of those positions is that these are the actual aircraft tracks, perhaps more or less something like. What would these videos be without a marsupial cameo, eh? Princess of the Black Spot arriving for biscuits and bread with her sister, and Princess's Joey. So yeah, I'm imagining that those are the endpoints of the traverse lines of the actual search. Was carried out by Catalina aircraft A2417, Captain Squadron Leader F.B. Chapman. And there he is there. We have a swamp wallaby. Name of Felicity. She's a bit psyched out by the kangaroos. Second pilot, P.L. Marsh. One empty life raft with 2 life belts therein was sighted at 15 degrees 57 minutes south, 154 degrees 24 minutes east, which is that big fella there, actually inside the search area. The aircraft was airborne Cairns at 0810 hours local, landed Cairns at 2200 hours local, so 8 in the morning till 10 at night. Flying time 15 hours 10 minutes. Sole remaining Catalina still serviceable after the Coral Sea battle. And that's taken a few months earlier, but it is actually a photograph of the last Catalina that was still flyable at the end of the Battle of the Coral Sea. Last RAAF Catalina still flyable. Frank Chapman attempted to land near the life raft and stay for the night and recommenced the search the next morning, but his stall landing was aborted due to dangerous sea conditions. And it was recounted in a letter from Ted Stuyvesant. A2417 was at dawn in the area where the engagement took place searching for survivors. I recall this very vividly because we sighted an empty float and bits of wreckage. Chappie came around to each of the crew in late afternoon and pointed out because we were about 9 hours out of Cairns, we would lose too much time returning to fuel, and asked if we were prepared to let him have a go at alighting to spend the night on the water and resume the search at first light. He said he would not do it if the disposition of the crew indicated otherwise. Of course, he got the okay, and I will always remember that occasion. Sitting at the wireless telegraphers in the navigation compartment, I looked through the cockpit, and even with the angle for a stall landing, I could not see any sky and then we hit. Okay, so what that means is that the level of the waves was up there, because sitting in here at the wireless telegrapher's compartment, he was looking out through the cockpit, and even nose up, ready to stall, he was seeing waves up here. Then we hit. The second pilot put the throttles through the gate, and with the nose up attitude, we gained some height before coming down in a stall turn to hit and follow a wave crest and clearing the water. I'm sure it would have been a good 60 or 70 seconds he fought that wave top. The attempted landing on the open sea was a highlight. From even 1,000 feet, the ocean looked calm enough, but in fact it was about a 10 to 20 metre roller, so 30, 35 foot swell. It was only the day before that Frank had told the second pilot, Peter Marsh, that if ever he doubted a situation, don't wait to be told, just hit the throttles. Peter did just that, and so hard he split the skin between his fingers. Kangaroos have gone. Felicity's come for bread. You can hear the packet rattling. And she's been gazumped by a kangaroo. Never a dull moment at this marsupial restaurant, is it? Back to the story at hand. Reappraisal after the Coral Sea battle. By the 11th of May, the only operational Catalina still serviceable was A2417, captained by Frank Chapman, and on the 13th of May it made a daylight search of the Coral Sea battle area for survivors from the Neosho and Sims, but found nothing, as the Americans had themselves located these survivors on the 11th of May, and so Frank Chapman on the 16th of May moved his aircraft to Brisbane, where civil aviation flying boat moorings were available in the Brisbane River at Hamilton. Frank Chapman located and leased a very roomy house in Langside Road, Hamilton, for the duration, and also engaged Mrs. Elliott and her lovely daughter Marge to operate this house to provide accommodation and food for Catalina aircrews operating out of Brisbane. This house from onwards was known as Catalina House, and even when the Army discovered its existence and used it for transients, if a Catalina was arriving, Mrs. Elliott would tell the Army that they would have to go as the owners were arriving. By this time, a stocktake of what had happened to the Catalina squadrons showed that between December 1941 and 11th of May 1942, we had lost the following aircraft and crews. 8th of December 1941, A2415, Captain Lynn Sloan, crashed Moresby, no survivors. 15th of January 1942, A2411, Captain Tom Davies, crashed on takeoff at Caveen, no survivors. 21st of January 1942, A24-9, Captain Lieutenant Hutchinson, or Lieutenant Hutchinson, brackets USA, shot down near Salamua, one survivor, rigger Tom Keane. 21st of January 1942, A24-8, Captain Bob Thompson, shot down off Caveen, 3 killed, others prisoners of war. 24th of February 1942, A2413, Captain Ern Beaumont missing over a bale, no survivors. 28th of February 1942, A243, destroyed on water Port Morseby by Japanese Zeros. I think we have the typo going on again because the 28th of February is not after the 24th. So either that should have been listed down there or it all happened on the 24th. I don't know. The point is, destroyed on water Port Morseby by Japanese Zeros, that also happens on the 24th of the 2nd to A24-6, A24-7, A24-5. So 1, 2, 3, 4 aircraft, 3 in one day. Bit sad. 30th of the 4th, 1942, damaged on water by Tulagi by 6 Japanese bombers, that's A24-23, and subsequently towed to Guadalcanal and scuttled. 4th of May, 1942, A24-18, Captain Alan Norman shot down by Japanese during Coral Sea battle. Harry Lanahan died on the 4th of the 5th. Remainder were prisoners of war but killed by Japanese on the 4th of November 1942. 6th of May 1942, A24-20, Captain Gough Hemsworth shot down by Japanese during Coral Sea battle, no survivors. So that 12 aircraft had been lost from a total delivery of 27, but also 7 crews had been lost. The squadron had, immediately following the Japanese landing at Rabaul, commenced bombing operations against Rabaul and had created the impression that we had an armada of flying boats. But by the end of February, we were reduced to patrolling and reconnaissance from the Tulagi Advanced Operating Base, up there off Guadalcanal, on the ends of the dividers pointers, as any aircraft on the water at Moresby was an open invitation to the enemy. It was only the delivery of 6 new aircraft in March 1942, followed by another 3 in April, that gave the squadrons the ability to continue after the Coral Sea battle. Even then, 2 of the new aircraft were lost during the Coral Sea battle. From early March, when the Americans had made their carrier-based raids on Lae and Salamua across the Owen Stanleys, their missing float planes had been found and repaired, and in April, the Tulagi-based Catalinas had opened their own offensive against the Japanese-occupied Faisi with bombing attacks and strafing prior to the Coral Sea battle. By mid-May, crew members who had been left at Moresby were brought out by ship, plus a group of maintenance staff, and Frank Chapman sent his crew, headed by Bobby Cox, on leave, and he took over Norm Fader's crew, headed by Russ Fleming. Norm Fader, an ex-New Guinea Airways pilot, was made available to the Americans to train the pilots of a transport group with C-47s to land on the uphill runway at Wau, as the C-47s were used to carry commandos and supplies from Moresby. As the Battle of the Coral Sea was concluded, the RAAF, recognising the gravity of the situation for flying boats, moved number 11 and number 20 Squadron from Port Moresby to Bowen, where they had also just completed setting up a flying boat maintenance unit and had also installed a slipway on the beach. Of the 15 remaining aircraft, at least 2 would be required at RAAF mines for training of crews and pilots, so operationally numbers 11 and number 20 squadrons shared 13 aircraft, so that an average total strength of 8 would have been just attainable, with 5 under repair or maintenance at any one time. The limiting factor on the servicing of a Catalina was the running time of the engines, as the original hours between engine changes was 240 hours. Frank Chapman, himself a holder of ground engineer certificates, was a promoter of extending engine hours and co-opted Jack Riddell, his original engineer, to extend engine life and to keep a keen watch on any problems. So engine hours were extended firstly to 360 hours and later to 480 hours, and later to 720 hours. Inspection of engines after 480 hours running indicated they were in better shape than most Lockheed aircraft engines after 240 hours. Basically, any engine problems were corrected promptly as they arose, plus the fact that the crews between them had enough technical skills to prevent any misuse of the aircraft and engines. Immediate benefits arose from extending 60-hour inspections, which included oil change and plug change, to 80 hours. Right, and that concludes the coverage for the 11th of May 1942, 79 years down the track. Looking back through the sea backroscope at the doings of 11 and 20 Squadrons, Royal Australian Air Force, based out of Port Morseby, flying Catalinas. Though, as I have mentioned, we'll probably come back to these accounts. With their stunningly documented accounts of what went on back in the day. And to be honest, the story of how we did lose the Red Roundel, although it's a good one, it's not actually a short story, so I'll save that for another video, perhaps dedicated just to that particular topic. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.